Greetings, it is Scott and Rita again. We're here to do a cosmic dialogue. We have no idea what's going to happen, what we're going to talk about. We're just going to start talking this time. So I have the idea. Well, we're just going to start talking. There are a couple topics that kind of came through. It's like we're either going full circle back to the beginning or back to the beginning to just discover something really, really new about our process. So how far in advance do we want to go? 3, 5 years, or in the past, or just tomorrow?
I think it doesn't matter what the time frame is, and that we're going to go into the spirit world.
Ooh.
We're going to look from those vantage points.
All right. Okay. I'm just going to put on a spirit persona for a little bit, maybe like channel a little spirit outside of myself. That seems a little more appropriate right now. So, and just sort of let that sort of come through. This is for Reyes, I guess it's my turn to channel.
Yeah.
I haven't really done that much. So, so as a spirit who is in the future, who's just sort of sitting back and watching Scott and Rita, just been curious in watching them, and I'm really seeing their curiosity and how they've really done so much with their cosmic dialogue. And so now, well into the future, here I am farther in the future than they are, but I'm actually looking back and seeing them and just as a snapshot. And so I'm just going to inject a little bit of something into there as a possibility for them right now, that there is much more to open up and discover with their cosmic dialogue. There are other windows that are just ready and waiting to be opened within this system of speaking truth and love from a possible future that's either happened or will happen or could happen. And that there are other windows that this opens up and other ways of speaking about it and other new, more expansive ways that they're going to explore. And as they come back, they may think that they're being a little more focused on themselves again. But this reseeding that comes about after a long period of time of dialoguing and going far into the future and into the spirit realms where we are, when you plant that seed again and you kind of start anew, this is when the new fruit kind of comes about and new discoveries are made. And so as Scott and Rita replant and see more of the things that are possible just for them, coming back just for them, there are some new fruits that are going to be exposed, just like an heirloom squash. Rita spoke about pumpkins and squash and things like that. And so how the ecosystem that they were in at that time had certain squash that were all uniform, orange, yellow, green. You can picture them in your mind. But then this reseeding after the long time of incubation created some new hybrid methods, just like hybrid fruits, hybrid seeds, like almost heirloom like, that were deeper, more discovered, more uncovered because they were more ancient. And those would be the things that they would discover and blossom outward. So, Rita, let's hear your perspective from the spirit world about what's about to be discovered.
So, my cat Lola would like to chime in as well. She might. But as you were talking, I could feel like grandma spirits poking in, saying, what's happening here? What's going on? What are they talking about? And that kind of awareness, that sensitivity and feeling of who is really listening and watching what we do. And not just you and me, but everybody. There might be spirits keeping an eye on you. And having that sensitivity grow and being able to interact and be inspired by their curiosity and where they might take this, the things that we're doing and discussing, where they might drop their seed of word of mouth, either on the planet with someone living or gathering 5,000 more spirits to come and just see what else might be possible from where they're living, that we are discovering, that we were discovering at that time, that we don't have to live in the world that was being created for us. And we were discovering ways to step out of it while still being fully physical and create from ourselves. And wanting so desperately at a certain time to share that ability with others, but coming up against so much resistance that it was like, okay, we'll just do it for ourselves. And so that's where we kind of came around full circle to, it's sort of for full circle, but it's not from the all physical needs of accomplishment or making money or anything like that. So it's for us to discover everything that we can discover.
Mm. And you spoke about grandmothers. And in the spirit realms, these grandmothers that you speak of are active, very active, and very, they listen, they're willing to share. They aren't always willing to come forward right away, but they love being asked. They love it when people just sort of sit next to them and watch. And they don't revel in the explanations. They just revel in the products, and not as a product like that you package and sell, but the product of, I'll just say, their hands. They kind of revel in that product of their hands that they make, that is created not of this pre-created world, but just of their hands to share love and a portion of truth. There's a portion of truth in, a huge portion of truth in collecting what we need to create a new, I mean, just the analogy of what it takes to bring about the greatest loaf of bread, what needs to be collected, what processes need to be handed down, what it feels like to mold the dough in your hands. It's an intangible that the grandmothers want us to just sit and be with them, observe and watch and try things out. But no need to create the whole cosmology in our mind beforehand, because that whole cosmology will happen naturally no matter what, and it isn't even up to us. A loaf of bread will become a loaf of bread if it wants to. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of ingredients thrown together. And I think that is what, okay. So even in the things that Rita and Scott are doing, conversation is conversation. And those conversations can come about. But in the end, it is up to the energy of that conversation to decide if it becomes something or if it just is ingredients that sit still. So there's a trust that I'm seeing that Rita and Scott will detach even more from the outcome of their conversations and know that there are certain times where this cosmic dialogue and conversation will actually bear its own fruit and decide, oh, this is the leavening point, or this is the fermentation point. Certain things will just emerge, and that there's a whole new level of trust, not out of an intention of exploring worlds or expanding consciousness or anything like that, but it is just this total trust that, yeah, sometimes your conversations will just become conversations, and there are times where they will grow legs and become a loaf of bread to fill your entire house. So that's an analogy that I'm seeing.
And the whole time you're talking, I could just hear like they're just laughing, just like, Irma, can you imagine what we would have done if we had known this stuff while we were on Earth? And sort of like a feeling of happiness that happiness mixed with sadness, living vicariously, feeling happy that they could assist in inspiring conversations that could lead to more discoveries about what it is to be human. Sadness that they weren't able to get there when they were on Earth. Sadness that because they couldn't get there, it led humanity to where it went to. But also just laughing, especially at the end of what you were saying, that sometimes these conversations grow legs. I heard somebody say, yeah, we used to call that gossip. So they're really understanding what it is when a conversation takes on a life of its own and creates more reality out there beyond two people just speaking. And that conversation was such a big part of their lives. And yeah, that full awareness that it could make things real happen. And they really want us to know that. Even if we're talking about really big, out there, seemingly impossible things.
Hmm. And just the idea how recipes catch on, not to be not as a trite thing, not as a diminished thing, but how recipes catch on. It's that's what I'm hearing. Recipes catching on. Someone does something very different and everyone loves it, and it becomes a new obsessive talking point. This new, oh wow, a new recipe for bread just like future making, a new, you know, oh, I never thought of this kind of a ratio of ingredients or this way of making preserves, and how it just becomes part of the technology. That's our word today, technology. For them, it was just craft, presence.
Yeah, every time you bring up a little piece, they all just like they go off into these groups, remembering things of, yeah, remember when Edith's cake recipe just, everybody had to have it. I was so jealous of her. And then they come back and listen to the next part, and they're just cackling, and they're a very joyous group.
And especially when they if you let a loaf of bread go, and it will raise to the size to your ceiling if you let it go. And I'm sure one or two of them have experienced that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're kind of chuckling at our naivete as well.
Yeah. But conversations fueled their world.
Mm-hmm.
It was their world.
And what they did with their hands.
Yeah. And then knowing that, you could buy a pie from a store, you could just bake a pie, because you read the recipe, you read what it took, and you just, decided to do whatever and throw it together, not caring. But that would come through. If you didn't care about what you were doing,
Mm-hmm.
it was almost this intangible. Like, you've got to care about what you're doing. And there was a change, the first woman with the electric beaters making the cake was not the same as one of the grandmothers who did everything by hand. And it was the taste, and everything was very different, authentic. It was almost like a degree of authenticity being stepped away from. And so that is what I think Scott and Rita are going through. Stepping back, taking all they know now, pull away all of the little, there may still be little bits of artificiality, that they can come back to a more basic essence that was raw and primal and ancient. As ancient as, how we first made fire, or how we first baked bread, how how we had to attract people to speak to us or talk to us or engage. And then what the real issues were. Um, if I make a marking on my cave, does that mean it's mine? If I put up a fence, does that mean this area is mine? Is it mine or not? So if I speak from a possible future, is that future mine? Or is that future everyone's? How is it mine to put a border around and claim? Or is it mine to share, to plant seeds somewhere else? When we step back, I think it really shows us that there's been more to take into account if we do rebuild the world, if we do rebuild from a society of authenticity that starts at the very basic beginning of getting something really major. But in practice, what does that mean? If we do step way back, society of love and truth, a sharing, a world.
No, Scott, you have frozen completely.
What are the
Oh.
practices look like, and who is it for? And
Well, this is big because this wasn't happening before. Okay, you're back now.
okay. Well, I'll just go back. What's important to know is that if we're going to have a society that is built on love and truth, where we actually have to rebuild and come about with something new, yeah, we have the knowledge up to this point, but we have to rediscover practices, how our hands form and shape this new slash old yet ancient way of being. And just like the older questions are going to be more important. If I put a fence around my land or my property, does that make it mine? If I'm the one who talks about a future reality for myself, does it make it mine?
That's when you started cutting out. When
Okay.
you said that.
Is it mine to claim just because out of sovereignty, or is it just part of this new world that will just virally inject itself wherever it wants to go? It will create legs. Just like the recipes of our generations of grandmothers. Speak once from love and truth, and then it will blossom out. And then whose is it really? Does it belong to us anymore? Does it belong to the next person? Just because we put up a sign that proclaims, "This is mine, no trespassing," is it really yours?
What I'm getting is that that question is important and it doesn't matter at the same time. Because yes, it's mine to claim. That future that I talk about is mine to claim. It won't be mine until I claim it. It won't be my future. It won't come into being until I claim it. And if I try to put a fence around it and put a copyright on it and keep others out, it'll be taken away. So that I will discover the next thing that I can claim and own as my own, until I learn that it's only mine to claim. The only reason to claim it is so that I fully know it, so that I can then move on to the next thing willingly, voluntarily, and leave that for someone else to discover. And they really, the grandmas really want us to notice the wisdom and the logic that builds from conversation and using your hands, those two things together. That is a really important thing as we explore all of these new abilities and ways of being human and ways of being, coming full circle around to being more connected to ourselves and to others, while the world, certain parts of the world, are prying us apart and trying to keep us from that intelligence and logic and conversation and connection. And that was the perfect time to just double down and get more connected.
So borrowing a few words from modern age, the universe and the creation of universes is not for our own appropriation. So humbly we honor those who brought about and created something for the first time. But then as those creations have their own lives, they're not for us to appropriate again. Put a fence around it, like you said, it'll be taken away. It will grow legs. It is ours to claim in the creation process. But just as ideas and children grow up, they get legs, they move on, they discover change. And that should be a beautiful process rather than a controlling process. I love that analogy. Like, yeah, put a stamp of copyright or trademark and be prepared for it to be taken away.
Yeah, the very thing that it's supposed to prevent.
Put a fence around your land and be prepared for it to be invaded.
Yeah.
That might be a stark reality, the starkness,
Prepare, build a prison and prepare for everyone to escape it.
I'm getting a cackle from one of the grandmothers, like, you can't keep your recipe secret forever.
Right, because then no one would eat the food.
Right. Once they get a taste, someone's going to figure it out, even if you keep it secret. There's no point.
Yeah.
Oh. I'm really grateful for reaching back and learning this lesson today.
Yeah. Yeah, I am too. And look what happens when you have no idea where you're going. You just hop on board and see what shows up and who's going to guide you.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful that next week I have different internet service. We'll see if that makes a difference.
Yeah.
We're actually going back to older technology, to DSL.
Oh, wow.
It'll be a little slower, but the bandwidth will be, as they say, all mine, I guess. Whatever that means in our in our modern age. Um, you know, so that's interesting. But yeah, look what happens. Look at where we can go. Let's really think about that hands thing. What we can
Hmm.
keep building, not just out of this.
Yeah.
What can we do here?
There's so much intelligence in our hands.
Hmm.
And the rest of our bodies that gets dismissed.
What a privilege! This is a new thing too. It's like something I'm hearing one of them say. Develop the privilege of arthritic hands,
Hmm.
because then you know you have worked them.
Okay, but grandma,
That's one of them.
yeah,
That's one of them.
we might have to teach grandma something as well. So.
Well, that is interesting. It's like, she's priding herself on when she was out of the in physical form,
Hmm.
feeling that was like her privilege that she could actually work her hands to that point. And it is kind of like that whole badge thing that's still there.
Yeah, there's
Still love.
emotional things that go along with arthritis. That's all.
Yeah.
Didn't, yeah, didn't necessarily come from working them, but it might have been related.
Mm. I'm gonna work with her a little more to see what she says, but
Hmm.
oh, she's also saying you don't know pain.
Mm.
And in a very loving way, she's saying you really don't know pain yet.
Mm.
And then I'm just seeing all the rest of the ladies just sort of like go back to talking about their food
Mm.
recipes,
Yeah, I
what they
feel
share.
that's just one of the addictions of focusing towards, towards pain, towards misery,
Yeah.
as a way of feeling alive, as a way of feeling validated, and not to diminish it at all. But that's one of the things that I personally want to create my future and have been. It's like, yeah, I really don't know pain, and I really don't need to. I really would prefer to continue um, receiving so much love that I don't have to have an intimate relationship with pain anymore.
Right.
I know enough to know that I would like to be done with it.
I'm hearing some sighs of relief from what you just said.
Oh,
All
good, because
around me,
I was afraid
all
I
the other spirits are sighing like, oh my gosh, she
would.
said it.
Finally, we've been trying to tell this one for. And this is how conversations have legs. This is, that spirit can possibly take on the future of releasing that feeling of accomplishment for her gnarled hands,
Yeah.
and be relieved of that pain.
Mm.
And we've just shown her the possibility that could be her future to claim, where her hands are perfectly strong and nimble again.
And loose and,
Mm-hmm.
and dancing. Oh, now they're all talking to her and letting her know that she did used to dance.
Mm.
Wouldn't it be great to go back to that? Mm. It's
Yeah.
fun to soften up a spirit, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, to do it lovingly, and fortunately she was open.
Yeah.
And I had to get past my little bit of fear of, respect your elders, and of course she knows more than I do, and I don't want to diminish that she's been in pain, and that she might get upset and leave, and maybe the other grandmas would be offended by all of this too, and just say what I know.
I believe that because you said that, it resonated really well with them.
Mm.
They wouldn't take it from me. They might, but in a kind of a, oh, that's so nice kind of way. And a
Well,
cackly, like you said, gossipy. That's funny.
yeah. Well,
Oh,
I have delivered a baby, so that might give me more credibility with them.
you've got the grandma cred.
And
Wow.
from their perspective, oh, did you hear something?
No, no, just delivering a baby. That sounds amazing.
Yeah. And I have to say I do know some pain. But but the oh, sorry, I lost it. Oh, from the spirit perspective, they can sort of see everything you and I have been through. The what's called the Akashic records. Our soul reveals everything, so they know that I have felt pain and that it's not there anymore. So it's kind of hard to deny that maybe I know a little bit about releasing
Yeah.
pain.
And we also just, well, we courageously do it anyway. We also just being aware that our souls broadcast to the spirit realm everything.
Hmm.
We're really seeing.
Yeah.
So no hiding there.
Mm-mm.
Putting a fence around your hidden, secretive, emotional hangups.
Right.
uh, yeah, those things are not ours to claim forever. They're children that grow and they have their own beautiful life.
Yeah.
Mm. Or to preserve and stick away forever on a shelf so that no one sees them.
Mm.
That's a fearful thing that we want to keep every last drop just for us and claim it so that it's never shared. It's like keeping a child locked inside. Ooh, like
Mm.
sounds like today.
Mm,
Where,
yeah.
yeah.
And
That's the
besides,
biggest fear. The biggest fear. Sorry,
oh, go
just
ahead.
really quick.
Go ahead.
I think that's the biggest fear of like some of our biggest control systems is that we are growing out of our childhood, and as soon as we escape that and we walk out, there's no more trademarking, claiming, naming, fencing around us. We're the children that are growing up out of the control systems, and as soon as they try more, what happens is we're taken away somewhere else and they have nothing to control.
That's when they start turning on each other.
Yeah. Any more thoughts? I interrupted you with a thought, I think.
I was just going to say that the things that we are discovering and have discovered are discovered like Columbus discovered the New World, as if people weren't already there living their lives. So we're just discovering the things that someone else has already walked away from and knew before us many times over. So every time we walk away because we've discovered something new, someone else can come to where we were. So rather than just holding on to soul circles or whatever else comes through as mine, maybe somebody else will start doing that and discovering it, and I will move on to something else. But exploring it fully is the fun, and letting others come along as the grandmas have.
Do you know if anyone's picked up your old palette knife technique that
Not
you've
that
moved away from?
not that I know of.
Yeah, you've made your own artistic departures.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Departures of identity, departures of technique. Yeah, for sure.
There for someone to rediscover or
Mm-hmm.
discover again their own way.
Mm-hmm. Or me to realize there's a piece that I missed before and to go back and develop it further. Who knows?
Great.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you. Till next time.
Okay.